The exchange of fire between Israel and Palestine has entered the third day as Israel continued to hit jihad targets in Gaza, and according to reports, the Palestinian militants launched hundreds of rockets across the border, while the Israeli military has hit more than 130 targets, including rocket launching sites. More than 400 rockets have been fired so far. At least 25 Palestinians have been killed in the crossfire, including 3 senior militants and at least 10 civilians. Egypt, a frequent mediator between the two sides, had brokered a ceasefire, but so far it hasn't yielded any positive result. After Imran Khan, at least 3 other senior leaders of his party have been arrested, including the PTI vice chairman and former minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi. The Pakistan army has been called in to maintain law and order, and massive protests have kicked off in Pakistan as the PTI chief and the former PM got arrested outside the Islamabad High Court. At least 5 people have been killed in the violent clashes so far. Khan has been arrested on corruption charges and has been remanded to 8 days of police custody. The Supreme Court of India has said that the Shiv Sena leader Uddhav Thackeray cannot be reinstated as the Chief Minister of Maharashtra, as Thackeray voluntarily resigned from the post and did not face the floor test to keep the chair. However, the bench further added that the Maharashtra Governor Bhagat Singh Koshyari's decision to call for the floor test for Uddhav Thackeray was also not in accordance with the law. A 5-judge constitution bench headed by the Chief Justice Chandrachud passed a unanimous verdict on a batch of pleas related to the political crisis in Maharashtra. In view of the worsening condition in Pakistan and a spurt in terror activities in Jammu and Kashmir, the Indian Army has alerted its troops along the entire western border. According to reports, strong vigil is being maintained by the forces along the line of control and the international border. The Punjab police has arrested 5 people who allegedly planned the third bomb blast near the Golden Temple in Punjab's Amritsar, and according to the Punjab police, explosives used in firecrackers were applied in the blast with the motive to disturb the peace in the region. This was the third blast in the area in a week's time. No injuries were reported in what the police described as a low-intensity blast. Ahead of the G7 finance ministers meeting in Japan, the Japanese finance minister has said that the G7 was not likely to discuss the US debt ceiling issue. Meanwhile, the finance minister confirmed that he would be meeting the US Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen on the sidelines of the meeting. The G7 finance ministers and central bank governors meeting will be held until this weekend. The French Foreign Minister Catherine Colonna welcomed her Chinese counterpart Qin Gang to Paris on Wednesday and said that China has a role to play in the global peacemaking. Before meeting Qin, the French minister had said that Russia needs to be convinced to return to full compliance with the UN Charter. She added that she would like to discuss the situation in North Korea, asserting that it is showing an equally worrying attitude. The visit comes as the European Union is working on a new set of sanctions to hinder those continuing to trade with Russia. It has identified China, Turkey and United Arab Emirates as well as states in Central Asia and the Caucasus as potential culprits. China and Ecuador have signed a free trade agreement, and according to China's Commerce Ministry, the two sides will create a more favorable, transparent and stable business environment for enterprises through the FTA and further stimulate the potential of trade and investment cooperation between the two countries. China on Wednesday launched its cargo spacecraft, the Tianzhu-6, the spacecraft was launched atop a Long March 7 carrier rocket. It was launched to deliver essential supplies to the astronauts on board its Tiangong space station. The spacecraft was launched from the Wenchang spacecraft launch site in the southern island province of Henan. After the launch, the Tianzhu-6 separated from the carrier rocket and entered its designated orbit. The solar panels on the cargo craft then came into functioning. As Taiwan prepares to train the first batch of women reserve forces, the Taiwanese President Tsai Ing-wen has expressed hope that more women will be joining the Republic's reserve forces training to defend the country well. Taiwan faces growing threats from China in the South China Sea region. While the island nation has always asserted its sovereignty, China has been relentlessly targeting it with an increased military presence and verbal posturing in recent years.
需要小陈颖做一个课后的总结检讨。
South Korea on Thursday lowered its crisis level for COVID-19. It will also drop its 7-day quarantine mandate from June. However, 5 days of self-isolation will be recommended for infected people. Several other COVID restrictions too will be dropped. This includes mandate on wearing masks at all medical facilities and pharmacies, but they will be mandated at hospitals with patient wards. The South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol said the government will continue to provide financial support for COVID testing and treatment for a while. Thousands of migrants are crossing into the United States this week before a new regulation takes effect. According to reports this week itself, more than 10,000 migrants were caught crossing the US-Mexico border illegally. Bulk migrants are reportedly crossing into the United States this week before the new regulation comes into effect and stops illegal immigration across the border for asylum seekers. US and Spain have announced cooperation on regional migration centers across America to incentivize safe, orderly, humane and regular migration. The announcement was made by Spanish Foreign Minister Jose Manuel, who is on a visit to the US along with the US Secretary of State Anthony Blinken. He also showed cooperation on reducing irregular immigration and promoting labor-related pathways for migrants from the Americas. While Blinken said that the centers will also give would-be migrants the opportunity to stay in their own countries. They will also determine whether the migrants have a legal pathway to come to the United States or to Spain. The U.S. Representative George Santos on Wednesday vowed to fight charges of fraud, money laundering and theft of public funds. The charges are the latest to hit the newly elected Republican, who has been facing calls to resign for allegedly lying over his resume. Appearing in a New York court, Santos called the federal charges a witch hunt. A 13-count indictment has charged him with defrauding prospective political supporters by laundering funds to pay for his personal expenses. It also accused him of illegally receiving unemployment benefits while he was employed. Germany will be spending an additional €1 billion in 2023 to cover the costs of refugees who have come to the country, mostly from Ukraine. The German Chancellor made the announcement on Wednesday, and Scholz made the announcement after holding deliberations with 16 state prime ministers, which lasted for hours. The Chancellor said the agreed sum was on top of the blanket means that governments make it available. The fund will be used for digitization of immigration offices and to better support municipalities. Ukraine on Wednesday claimed that it had pushed back Russian troops from some of the frontline positions, and senior military officers said that the Russian unit in some parts of Bakhmut have retreated by up to a mile, and said that the leader of the Wagner group has apparently confirmed the claim. He said that Russia's 72nd Separate Motor Rifle Brigade has abandoned its positions in Bakhmut, and the Wagner head added that nearly 500 of its fighters were killed in the battle. Around 1,400 security officers of Britain's biggest airport, the Heathrow airport, walked out in dispute over low pay. Dozens gathered outside the London airport and raised slogans. Amid the rising cost of living and soaring inflation, the low pay has been pinching even more. The walkout follows a 10-day strike carried out during the Easter holiday period. After last-minute talks over pay rise failed, the Heathrow airport plans to further take strike actions later this month. Hungary and Serbia have agreed to build a crude oil pipeline. The pipeline will be spanning up to 128 kilometers between the southern Hungary town of Aliago and Serbia's Novi Sad. The announcement was made by the Hungarian foreign minister at a conference in Belgrade. An agreement regarding the same will be signed at the government meeting on June 20th. Prime Minister of New Zealand, Chris Hipkins, will be attending the United States Pacific Summit at Papua New Guinea, and Joe Biden, the U.S. President, will meet the leaders of the 18 Pacific countries and territories, and according to the White House, the summit will give the leaders a chance to discuss and strengthen cooperation on critical challenges including climate change, protection of maritime resources, and also enhancing economic growth. This will be Hipkins' first visit to the Pacific region after becoming the leader in January. Dozens of Georgians staged a protest outside the country's foreign ministry building on Wednesday. The protest happened against Russia's decision to restore visa-free travel for citizens of Georgia. It was also done against Moscow's move to lift a ban on direct flights between the two countries imposed in 2019. The demonstrators gathered in front of the building as the president termed the move as a provocation. He also says his own position is largely his position is ceremonial. He has repeatedly accused the ruling Georgian Dream Party of having ties with Moscow since it came to power in 2018. Ukrainian, Russian, Turkish and the UN officials completed the first day of talks on possible extension of the Black Sea Grain Deal in Istanbul on Wednesday. After the meeting, the Turkish foreign minister said that he believes that the deal can be extended for 2 more months. The meeting happened as Russia says that it would not extend the pact beyond May 18. It has placed its list of demands for removing obstacles to its own grain and fertilizer exports. Moscow says that fulfilling these demands is important to extend the deal. The Indian Met Department has issued a warning of a deep depression being formed in the southeast Bay of Bengal and is intensifying gradually into Cyclone Mocha. In the wake of the upcoming cyclone, certain regions of India have been put on high alert. The cyclone will fall between Bangladesh and Myanmar. Bangladesh has been put on high alert with volunteers being deployed in various regions. The cyclone will be on its peak on May 13th and is likely to weaken from May 14th onwards. Earthquake tremors were felt in Japan's capital Tokyo and surrounding areas, injuring many people and causing minor damages. Reports from the Japan Weather Agency said that the magnitude of the quake was 5.4 on the Richter scale, and northeast region of Tokyo, Chiba, was the epicenter. There will be reports There were reports of damage in some houses with broken windows. 4 people were injured, including a man who got hit by a falling ceiling light. Also, several train lines were temporarily halted for this. Dog lovers were in for a fun day at the annual Puppy Prom in California. A fair amount of pets dressed in glamorous and sparkly outfits competed to determine who was the best dressed. This year, 2 Yorkshire Terriers were crowned Doggy King and Queen, it seems. Where the Doggy King was dressed in a blue outfit with a gold crown, and Bitsy, the Doggy Queen, had her own tiny car. The Puppy Parade is in its 9th year, arranged by the Helen Woodward Animal Centre. Growing popularity of the anime, the action-packed and sci-fi ridden entertainment medium suddenly witnessed the spurge in its popularity, especially during the pandemic. The popularity has opened a plethora of likes on Netflix, Disney and Amazon Prime, and they have indulged in a battle for its supremacy. As per reports, last year global market was valued at 28.6 billion and is most likely to double this year.